Hello everybody and welcome to the fourth video in the Blender Basics course. So far we've gone over navigation, we've gone over transformations of moving things around in object view, and last video we did editing view where we started to look at vertices, edges, and faces and how to move them around, and we talked about edge loops and how to add them and how to select them. Now we're going to start getting into adding geometry. So I'm going to go into tab. I'm going to tab it into edit mode. A lot of Blender videos will say, we're going to tab it into edit mode. That just means you press tab, which means you go into edit mode. And what we're going to do is I'm going to put an edge loop in like before. I'm going to press this. I've gone into edge mode and I've selected this edge. So before continuing, I just want to kind of review something. Before in the previous video, we had all three of these buttons selected, which meant that we could select either edges, faces, edges, or vertices. However, a lot of the times you want to just be able to select only vertices, only edges, or only faces, because often the model, there's a lot of stuff going on in the model, and if you have them all selected, you might just select stuff by accident, which can be very annoying. So if I know I'm just want to select faces, I won't have all three of these buttons on. I'll just have this one on. So the shortcuts for each of these modes are 1, vertex mode, only vertices. 2, edge mode, only edges. 3, face mode, only faces. So right now, since I want to add an edge loop, I'm going to go into edge mode. I press 2. There I am. I want an edge loop going around this way. I'm going to select the perpendicular edge and press Control and R. And I'm just going to accept that. And there, now I have an edge loop. Great. Why did I do that? Well, because I want to show you that we have looked at so far just moving things around. I just pressed 3 and now I'm in edge mode. So before, for example, I showed you that you could, move the faces. If I select this one and I press GY, this is now the y-axis, and I'll turn the axes back on because I had turned them off before. Put them back on so you can see what axis is going on. GY moves it along the green axis backwards and forwards. And you notice that when you move this edge, since it's when you move this face, since it's connected to everything, it pulls the entire model, basically, which very often is what you want. GY, I'm moving it like this. So for example, if I want to move this thing up, GZ, and I move it up. And I'm pulling all the faces with it. But what if I want to create, for example, a drawer that is a separate box that is not going to pull the entire thing forward? Well, that means I actually have to create more geometry. Let's say that's the front of the drawer. I need 4 sides of the drawer. And instead of just making these things one by one, what you do is you extrude this face. So this face is selected. If I just press E and pull, notice what happens. I didn't just pull the whole thing. I actually created 4 faces basically on the side of this plane that I pulled out, on this face. I had 1 face pulled out and it created 4 additional faces. So now I have basically sort of a drawer. I could do, for example, I'm going to show you how to do this in a second. I could do this, and then I could do this, and whoops, sorry about that. And I'd have sort of a drawer. I'll go back to that. Let's explain what I just did in a second. Extruding means pulling let's say in this example, a face out and also creating new faces around it. See what I just did? By default, when you extrude something, it extrudes it perpendicular to that object. So look at where this face here is basically like that. When I press E, it'll pull it out that way, perpendicular. E, perpendicular. Now, it's very easy to press E twice by accident. So for example, if I do this, and I might forget about it, I actually have created 2 faces because look, it says E times 2. Be careful when you press extrude, you'll get used to it, but just press it once. And then I pull it out like that. And for example, there, I press E, it'll extrude it that way. And I press E, and I extrude it that way. I'm just randomly making up stuff. Press E, extrude it that way. Great. Now, this is why you put those edge loops in. Let's say that I wanted to have just part of this going up. I would first need to add an edge loop. Let's say I wanted to have this section here up. I'm going to add an edge loop here. I've just put it to edge mode. I click the perpendicular edge, Control R, and I added this edge loop there. Let's say I move it to here, 3 for face mode, select the face and extrude. I had to add that edge loop in there in order for me to just pull up that part. So that's why you need to be able to know how to add edge loops, because often usually they're for so that you can only move a certain part of the mesh. They allow you to basically subdivide the mesh and pull out only that part. So for example, let's say that I wanted to pull out just a rectangle here, just there, not there, not there. I would need to edge mode, Control R, and in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, Control R, and I'm going to make 2 edge loops there. Now I'm going to go face mode, extrude. Without the edge loop added there and there, I would not have been able to do that. So the basic, it looks like a weird dog. Often what you're doing is you're adding an edge loop and then extruding some part of it to make the shape that you want. Now, this is just a very random looking blocky shape, but you get the idea. So that is what extruding means, basically pulling out a face and then creating other faces along with it to support it, basically on the sides. The next thing that I did that you might have been wondering, how did I just do that, was insetting, which is sort of the same idea as extruding, but you'll see what I mean. Let's say that I have this top box here. I want to have a smaller square inside, maybe recessed, like I did with the drawer. If I click this and I press I, and then I pull, look what happens. I am creating a new polygon or a new square inside of the old one. If I accept that, see, now I have this edge around here. Now what I can do is I can take this polygon, I just click that, and I can press E and pull it down. So you've basically made sort of like a box which now has a recess in it. Again, let me do the entire thing again. Let's say I want to do that. I click this, I press I, and now I can pull it to however small I want. Let's say I want that part to be sorry, it's kind of annoying. I'm going to zoom out a little bit more because it's too small. There we go. Really small. I want a really small thing. And I'm going to press, now that it's there, without unclicking it, I can just press E, and I can pull it down, or I can even pull it up. I can make kind of a tower. So insetting basically means you're making a edge loop inside another plane, inside another face. And then once it's inset, you can pull things out. You can extrude. So again, I'll be very fancy right now, and I'll do this. I'm going to click that. I'm going to create an edge loop. I'm going to go here. I'm going to inset it, and I'm going to extrude it. So you can hopefully see how doing this allows you to create complex models, complex shapes. And then, of course, you can move things. I can still move this all over the place. I can move this however I want. I can scale it. But hopefully you get the idea. And of course, you'll see as soon as we start doing projects, that's the combination of selecting, scaling, moving, rotating, adding edge loops, extruding parts of it, insetting parts and extruding them that allows you to do these complex models. Okay, so far we've looked at extruding and insetting, which is what this is. Now let's look at something called beveling. I'm going to just delete this whole thing because I'll start with a cube. It's a lot easier to sort of see. No, actually, I'm going to use a cylinder. So I added a cylinder there. And I'm going to go into edit mode by doing tab. I'm going to select this edge loop. I just went into edge mode. Alt click, like before. I selected the edge loop. And in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new edge loop. I'm going to click there, Control R, and I'll do just one. I have created an edge loop. Now, I want to show you what beveling is. A bevel is basically taking one edge, or one edge loop usually, and creating more than one, basically softening it. So it goes from something like this hard edge you see here, to something like this. What I just did very quickly is I beveled that edge. So let me just undo all that I did. So to bevel something, what you do is you're often beveling an edge loop. So I'm going to select the edge loop, Alt and click, and I'm going to press Control B. Now if I pull away, you see, let me go back to the default. If I pull away, it created basically two edges out of that one edge. Let me do it again so you can really see. Ah, I created a second edge loop and another set of faces in between. Basically, I pulled it apart and made a plane. So now it's at a 45-degree versus a 90-degree. And what I can do while I'm beveling it, let me do it again. I can pull it like that. If I move the mouse wheel, it's kind of like Control R. It gives me more bevels, more edges. So I just push it up and now I have two edges, 3, 4, 5. The more edges you put, the softer it becomes. Now you don't want to put billions of edges, and you're going to learn that in 3D, you generally want the simplest model possible. So when everyone starts, they do something like this. They put 6 billion edges in, and there's no reason for that at all, and it just made everything very heavy. So don't do that. Let's go back, and I'll bevel it, and I'll basically just make, I don't know, that. Now I have beveled that edge. So it basically softened the edge. Now, it's not just for softening edges. If I take this edge loop, select it, and bevel it, it's on a flat surface, so it won't create any kind of softening, but it will it will multiply the amount of edge loops. Now I have one edge loop. If I go Control B and I pull like that, and I scroll back, it's creating two edge loops and a row of faces in between. If I press this again, it's creating 3 edge loops, 4, 5. This allows me to create, for example, if I do like that, and I accept that, I have now created 3 edge loops. But I can do something like this. Pull this one in. And now I can make something that looks like that. Or, for example, I could just make 2 edge loops. So I'll try this here. Do that. And I could do this. And make something like that. Now it looks like the reactor from the Death Star. So that was the combination of, I'll do it again, exactly what I just did. I selected this edge loop, Alt-click, I press Control B, I pulled up like that, and now I have beveled this edge from one edge loop into 2 with a whole row of faces, a face loop. And without doing anything, what I actually did was I pressed E, Extrude. And if I move it like that, I have this chunk. However, let me show you something really cool. If I press E and then immediately S, I am now extruding it but shrinking it. So let me do that again because this command that I just did here was very, very useful. Do the entire thing again. Bevel. ES. Shrink. And I created this weird looking kind of hamburger thing. Now, just to show you that all the controls on Blender look the same, or work the same way. So remember what you learned about if you want to prevent Blender from scaling it on, for example, the Z-axis, you press Shift-Z. So let's say that I have this thing. I'll do it again once for the 17th time. Here we go. I made my bevel. And let's say I want that section to not shrink vertically. I just want it to go inside, but I want to keep it exactly the same height that it is. Extrude, Scale, Shift-Z. Now you see if I look at it from a dead-on angle, it's perfectly straight. It looks like, I'm gonna do it again. It's like the weirdest looking dumbbell ever, you know. Here, I'll take the whole thing and I'll rotate it 90. It's the worst looking dumbbell ever, or a very strange looking sandwich. So that was the combination of beveling, extruding, and scaling only on 2 axes. So this is why I'm saying that the more you remember these basic commands, the easier it's going to be because everything in Blender is based on those basic commands. All right, that has been extruding, insetting, and beveling. And thank you very much, and I hope you have a great